On the bell ringer, it is a factoring review. So, what is the first thing you do every time you want to factor something? First step, always. Factor out a greatest common factor. So what is the greatest common factor? And then what do you do? What is x squared minus 9? How do you factor that? Good. It's a difference of perfect squares, so you can factor that some more into x minus 3x plus 3. And so what is x? Yes. Okay. Okay, multiplicity. What is the multiplicity of each one of those zeros?
1.
Almost.
2.
2, 1 and 1. Why 2 on the 0? It's squared. X times x, so that 0 appears twice. I'm going to skip to number 6. I think it's the hardest on the slide. Have we done this all year long like 100 times? Factoring? Yes. We've had it on mastery exams. What is the greatest common factor? -2. This has 3 terms, so I'm going to try to unfoil it. If something multiplies together to give me x to the 4th, what are the 2 things that would have to be? Good, x squared and x squared. So if something multiplies together to give me 2, what are the only options? 1 and 2. I just don't have any choices. I do have to decide which one of those needs, they do need to be opposite signs to get a -2. Good, +2 and -1, that way I get -1x squared and +2x squared, which adds to give me +1x squared. Does this factor any more? X squared minus 1, isn't that another difference of perfect squares? What does it factor to be? Very good. Now we need to find x, and it turns out this is slightly difficult. Now the x equals 1 and -1 aren't too hard to find. But the x squared plus 2, I need to do a side note. Since it is still a quadratic, I need to solve that equal to 0. It takes a little bit more work. Subtract the 2 over, do we agree? And square root. This is an imaginary answer. So if I were asking for x-intercepts, would you answer with an imaginary number? No. Because it asks for zeros, we can go ahead and answer the imaginary 0, but just know if it asks for x-intercepts, that's the one difference between those words. X-intercepts are real things where we really cross the x-axis, and we would leave off imaginary answers. All of these have a multiplicity of 1. Do you agree? Now there is a square here, but remember you got 2 different answers, so they didn't appear twice. Okay, we started this problem yesterday. Did we finish it? No, we did A and maybe B, maybe not B, so. Yeah, sure. Sure, we'll restart. We'll go a little faster this time, but we will restart. If you are using the same calculator you were using yesterday, do you still have the data in? Or unless you did those 3 problems on your homework. So stat edit, and you type in the data. Remember, since it started at 1950, we did 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, all the way up to 70, because 2020 is 70 years after 1950. In L2, we typed in the other data, the 2.9, 14.3, 25.2, 35.1, 39.5, 44.8, 53.3, 68.8. Now I'm going to go, after I get the data in, what do I do next? Stat, over to calculate, and I go down to cubic regression. Why do I go to cubic? Why do I go to cubic regression? It said so. It said do the cubic equation that models the data. So I'm going to do cubic regression, L1, L2, and I am going to go ahead in the store regression equation, and I didn't do this yesterday because we were in a hurry. I'll check later. In the store regression equation, I'm going to put, what did you do with it? Oh, I threw it away. I'll check it later. Okay, so I'm going to go to alpha trace and click the Y1. That will go ahead and put the equation in Y1. It just keeps me from having to go type. You could go type it in, but it does it for you. And then go down to calculate and push enter. This equation is the answer to part A. I know it went away. I'll bring it back up in a second. But it's 2.927 x cubed plus or minus 0.032 x squared plus 1.718 x plus 1.873. Everyone see where I'm getting those numbers from the calculator into the equation? The A, B, C, and D. Everyone see how that works? Then it asks me to graph my data and the equation on the same coordinate plane. I'm going to make my calculator do that for me, all of that. I made the calculator store the equation that I just wrote down in y equals, so it already has that piece, but I also want my calculator to plot the dots. So to make that happen, and this we did not go through slow yesterday, so watch this. Go to second y equals, which is your stat plot menu. Click the first one and turn it on. Make sure it's a scatter plot and make sure it's using L1 and L2. After we get done, everyone listen to this. Y'all listening? Go back and turn it off. Because if not, you're going to have dots on your graph. And you're going to ask me in a couple days, Ms. King, my graph's broken, it has dots on it. Why does it have dots on it? It has dots on it because you put them there. Right? See, we're putting them there. So if you don't want them on, you have to go turn it back off. But you just turn it back off and you're good. There is a button that makes it set the window perfect. If you go to zoom 9, which is zoom stat, it will zoom perfectly to your data window. And then you can just copy that graph down on paper. If you had a cool smartboard like I do, you could just copy paste. If not, you'll have to draw it. Yes. Come show me. Does it look like a good fit? You didn't store the equation in what, or maybe you did.
Like in the Y1?
Yeah, you have nothing in Y1. Here's how you make that happen. Go to stat, calculate, cubic regression. And right here, you have to type Y1.
Okay.
and now it's in your whiteboard. Or you could manually type it. So if you accidentally miss that step, then you just go type that in Y1. Okay. Does it look like a good fit? Yes, it looks really good, doesn't it? By this model, how many million people were receiving Social Security benefits in 2005? How am I going to do that? What's the model they're talking about? The equation. By this equation, well, what is X again? The number of years after 1950, right?
Do you just keep taking?
I guess. I mean, it'd be better if you were listening to the teacher, but if this is the only time you got it. What is X? The number of years after 1950, which is 55 years. So I want to put in 55 for X. If you already have that in your Y equals, what's a really quick way to make that happen? Your table, right? You remember using your table? Go to second table, 55, push enter, 49.646. Any questions about how I did that?
The thing I did forget is the dollar sign.
If that's all you miss. No, I need work there, though.
Okay. I feel like that. No, you're doing that.
Do this one for me. If you do, then I'll say yes, you know what you're doing. And you didn't know what you were doing. Don't. If she doesn't know how to do that. Oh, no, she's going to try one first, though.
That was the hard one.
I mean, I don't.
I have to have it on number 6.
That's the hard one.
I want to know that you know how to do it, because I think y'all are just memorizing the answer.
I mean, just.
No, that's not how you do that. Try x cubed plus 2. Try x cubed plus 2. If you can do that one, I'll call it good. If not, you don't know how to do it. And did you learn something? Okay. My job is to make sure you know what you're doing, not that you can, you've got a final to pass when I'm not here. I've got to teach you something before I leave. Okay, any questions about that one? This video is not going to be any good either, but we're going to have to use one of them. This is probably the distraction, that y'all didn't do your mastery test in a timely manner. I should have said no. Okay, any questions about that? This one I'm going to plug in 80. $87.314. Any questions about those? Okay, I'm going to skip that. It's all factoring. A good portion of your homework looks like this tonight. It should look almost just like last night's homework. Would you agree with that? Everyone look. Look just like last night's homework. What is the difference? Last night they factored them all for you, didn't they? So I've just got to do one extra step to make this where I can do it. What does this factor to be? What do you do first? Factor out an x squared. I do want you practicing these by hand, but if you get stuck on a factoring problem, what else do you have at your disposal? Good. Factor poly. Yes. So the zeros are 0, 2, and -2. So I can put those on the graph, 0, 2, and -2. The leading coefficient. What is the leading coefficient? I would argue this is easier than last night's homework. Why is it easier?
Because you already have the leading coefficient.
Yeah, it's not. In factored form, it's harder to see, isn't it?
I don't know.
Listen,
That's arguable.
why do they call them zeros and not just like x-intercepts? Like, I don't understand that part.
There are 3 words that you need to know are synonyms.
Okay,
Zeros,
so that's-
x-intercepts, and roots. Now, the only difference is when we ask zeros, we will go ahead and give imaginary answers, where x-intercepts, we will only give the real ones.
So on this, you want the imaginary.
Well, there aren't any, but
No.
I suppose if there were, you could put them down. Any questions about the leading coefficient, the number in front of the x, and the degree, the highest power? This is a 4th degree polynomial with a positive leading coefficient. So the ends both go up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as x approaches infinity, the graph rises, and as x approaches negative infinity, the graph still rises. It goes up on both sides. As x goes to the left, or to the right, and as x goes to the left. Questions about that? What is the maximum number of turning points? 3. How do you know?
Because you just took the highest exponent and minus 2.
It's 1 less than the degree, 1 less than the highest exponent. Relative maxes and mins is a calculator question. So here's what I probably know without a calculator, that this graph looks something like that because we have the end behavior and the zeros. Anything from there, I need a calculator. You could probably even tell the shape, but I can't tell the lowest point without a calculator. So I'm going to go to my y equals. You might want to turn your plot off. By the way, a quick way to do the plot on and off, you see right up here, see how these plots are up here on my calculator? If they're highlighted, they're on. So you can go click on it and it will highlight or unhighlight. So you can go highlight off and it'll turn it off, or you can go back to stat plot and turn it off. What was it? X to the 4th minus x squared? Was that what it was? Minus 4x squared. And I'm going to go back to Zoom 6, back to a normal window. I was on that window for my data. Do you have time to say 7th hour?
I've stopped.
Okay, let's look at this one. You can help her if you don't mind watching the video. Okay. I want to find the maxes and mins. So the minimums, how will I do that? Second trace, minimum. I'm going to pick one of the minimum values. I'm going to go hover on it. Maddie, did you figure out how to do this before? This is the finding a minimum in the calculator?
Yes.
Okay. Go to the left and push enter. And then go to the right and push enter. And push enter one more time. And that gives me the minimum. Negative 1.414, comma, negative 4. Okay,
It's about to the right, it's to the left.
that's the stuff up here.
Yes, I got confused.
Okay, so I look at the end behavior.
Yeah.
And so these are both going up.
Yeah.
So as I go to the right, I go up. As I go to the left, I go up.
And by, like, that's looking, like, reading it from right to left and left to right.
No, it's as x goes to the right, I'm going up.
Yeah.
As x goes to the left, I'm going up.
I don't know why, but sometimes I get confused.
I'm going to shortcut the other minimum. I just know the answer. Normally you would go find it. And then the maximum, again, I'm shortcutting. Go find it, but it's at 0, 0.
So you have to find both.
All of them, yes. All of the peaks and all of the valleys. And this one's 1.4. So this graph does something like this. You can come in tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last day. So I was reminding you today, tomorrow is the last day. Okay, one more problem type, and this one is probably the one you need the most work on. So switch up how to do 6. Watch this, and then I might have time to show you how. Okay. Find the polynomial function with these zeros. So this is a Jeopardy question. I have the answer. I want to know what was the question, kind of. I have the zeros. I want to know what was the function. Well, if x equals 0 is a 0, what would the function look like? Okay, x times, it could be x squared, but it could just be x. X minus 1. Okay, before I go on, does anyone have any questions on how they got that? The only hard part about this question is that it says to answer in, what is standard form? Multiplied out. So I'm going to multiply the two that need to be FOILed out first. X squared plus 4x. Inner is negative x, and last is minus 4. And I'm going to distribute the x to all of those. And then combine like terms. Some of you would probably do that in your head together at the same time, and that's fine too. You don't have to show every step. Show most of them. Any questions about that one?
Wait, isn't the negative 3x in that positive?
Oh, it is. Thank you. Glad you're paying attention. I could pretend I was testing you, but I wasn't. It just
Or wish.
do what?
Or wish.
No. But we'll pretend. Okay, this next, the first part's the easy part, right? And what is it? X. The next part's the hard part. I highly recommend, if you have two things where one's a plus and one's a minus, that you multiply those two first. I'll show you why. Let's do it. So if I multiply the middle two, I get x squared minus 2x plus 2x minus 4. Everyone agree? The 2x's cancel, right? And so I get x times x squared minus 4 times x minus 3. Now I need to FOIL these two. So this one's yucky. This one's about the worst they get for what you're going to do with them. X cubed outer is negative 3x squared. Inner is negative 4x. Last is 12. And I multiply everything by that x. And I get x to the 4th minus 3x cubed minus 4x squared plus 12x. Any questions about that? Okay, your homework is a worksheet. Kendra, will you pass those around? And then don't forget to go back and do those 3 problems. Now, some of you may have done them last night if you already knew how to do them, but those 3 book problems and this worksheet is your homework for tonight. It is due tomorrow, and mastery is also tomorrow. I get here at 7. If you have waited until the last day on Mastery, you should be here tomorrow morning at 7. I know I get a lot of whines about that. It's not my fault you waited until the last day. Do it.